Do you feel like a prisoner to your mind when you can't stop overthinking? Well, let me be the first to tell you that you can walk out of this prison whenever you like. But first, you must find the 3 hidden keys within your prison cell. Come, follow me. I will show you. The first key is hidden in plain sight, and it is called the key of awareness. Now, awareness is also called consciousness and is a state that is transcendent beyond all experiences. What this means is that consciousness is unbothered by all of your thoughts. All of them. Your overthinking is only a problem when you are caught in your mind. The moment that you focus on being aware of your thoughts, you automatically create separation from them. You go from being trapped in this prison of the mind to a more transcendent state. Think for a moment of being trapped underneath a big rain cloud. But then suddenly you start floating higher and higher and higher like a balloon, until eventually you reach a point above the clouds. Now it still might be raining and storming, but it no longer has any effect over you. In the same way, every time we remember to remain as awareness, every time we are aware of our thoughts, the more we begin to transcend them. Although this can take some practice at first, awareness is your most natural and default state. Ask yourself this question: does it take any effort to be aware? The second key can be a bit more difficult to find, and this is called the key of assumption. What this means is that your overthinking and your negative thoughts are nothing but assumptions that you choose to believe in. Many people rationalize their thoughts and are actively seeking all of the evidence to reaffirm their beliefs. When you are open to an idea, you allow it in. For instance, let's say for a moment that you are overthinking about something in the future. You're assuming through your imagination all of these different possible scenarios that could happen. But at the end of the day, they are all imaginary. They're made up. They don't mean anything. But because we believe that, it could be a possibility, this could be true, this might happen. What if? Think about it practically for a second. The future is infinite potential. There is always an infinite array of different things that could happen at any moment. You cannot even predict what is going to happen in the next 5 minutes or 5 seconds. You couldn't have predicted that. Like that scene from Jurassic Park.
Look at this. See? I'm right again. Nobody could have predicted that Dr. Grant would suddenly jump out of a moving vehicle.
Alan?
There's another example. See, here I'm now by myself, talking to myself. That's chaos theory.
The moment we stop valuing our thoughts is the moment that we say, well, yes, these things could happen, but anything could happen. You could win the lottery tomorrow. You could get hit by a bus. Trying to think about the future is madness. Literally, we're trying to engage in an impossible task. There's always an infinite array of different possibilities, and we choose to focus on the few that we fear. Socrates was called the wisest man because he said, "All that I know is that I know nothing. Be like Socrates." Let's say perhaps you are ruminating on something somebody has said to you. Well, as it has been said, when we assume, it makes an ass out of you and me. We have no idea what that person was thinking, what that person was going through, or why people do the things they do. Again, a futile endeavor, and we often try to figure out or understand, why did this person say this to me? Or we play an argument with that person in our minds. But the fact is that we are assuming an idea of that person. It's all imaginary, all ideas that we are choosing to believe in. So rather than giving people free rent inside your mind, simply realize that there is no point in trying to figure it out. Give it up, let it go. Shrug your shoulders and say, well, it's not my problem, it's their problem. Because when we allow the things that other people say to get to us, we take their problems and make it our own. to recognize that your thoughts are only assumptions, not fact. There is no rule book that says that you have to believe the thoughts your mind is telling you. Now, each of the keys themselves can individually unlock the cell door of your mind prison. But when you use all three together, the cell door opens by itself. The last key is called the key of alleviation. You see, there is this interesting phenomenon that you may have heard of called a flow state. A flow state is when you are deeply rooted in the present moment and are in harmony with the flow of life. In this flow, you enter into a state of no mind. And where there is no mind, there is no thoughts. If you can pair the first two keys with this key, your overthinking will never bother you again. First, you become aware of your overthinking and your negative thoughts. And ask yourself, is awareness bothered by these thoughts? Then you realize all of the thoughts are nothing but assumptions that we choose to believe in. We can become wise like Socrates and say, well, I just don't know. You give it up, you let it go. Because you realize that it's just not possible to really know. We can only believe, we can only think, we can only assume. And lastly, with the key of alleviation, you find a way to enter into a flow state, a state of no mind. If you want to live a terrible life, have an active mind and a still body. But if you want to live a life of freedom, have an active body but a still mind. When you engage in movement, in action, you enter into a flow state. You see, the mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So when you are deeply engaged with what is in front of you, you cannot also be caught in a storm of overthinking. Now can you? I didn't think so. Physical exercise is, of course, the most potent way to get into a flow state. But you can also engage in some kind of creative thing like art or music. Whatever you like, whatever you're passionate about. It is important that you can have something to constantly rely and fall back on whenever you get caught in your mind. Some kind of meditative practice. For me, exercise has been the foundation of my life. Remember, you can't solve a problem from the same level of mind in which it was created. Overthinking is a problem of the mind, and therefore the mind has no way to overcome it. You either have to dive deep into your body or transcend above through awareness.